The first time Daniel Ruiz saw the number, 4,200,000, projected on the 30-foot screen, his mop bucket slipped from his hand. $4.2 billion. He stood alone at the back of the glass-walled conference room on the 48th floor, the scent of lemon disinfectant clinging to his uniform, his name stitched in fading blue thread above his heart. Outside, Manhattan shimmered under a pale autumn sun. Inside, the future of one of America's fastest-growing tech companies was about to be signed away. Daniel wasn't supposed to be there. Janitors weren't invited to executive meetings. They arrived after applause, faded, and left before deals were toasted with imported champagne. But Daniel was a single dad. And single dads didn't always have the luxury of clocking out on time. His 8-year-old daughter, Sophia, had been up half the night coughing. He'd spent the early hours sitting beside her narrow bed in their tiny Queen's apartment, counting her breaths and promising her that everything would be okay. He'd come into work late, quiet, tired, and now he was just trying to finish his floor before the night supervisor noticed. He kept his head down until he heard a name. Arcadia Redevelopment Zone, someone at the table said. Daniel froze. Arcadia, his neighborhood. The place where Sophia had learned to ride, a bike in a cracked parking lot behind their building. The place where Mrs. Chen downstairs slipped him homemade dumplings when money was tight. The place where the corner bodega owner let him pay late when overtime didn't come through. On the screen, glossy renderings appeared. Sleek towers of steel and mirrored, glass rising where brick walk-ups once stood. Complete acquisition, said a man in a charcoal suit. Full demolition. Construction begins Q1 next year. Daniel's chest tightened. Full demolition. That meant eviction notices. That meant families with nowhere to go. That meant rents doubling overnight. That meant Sophia's school. He told himself to stay quiet. He was a janitor. This was a $4.2 billion deal. At the head of the table sat Elizabeth Warren, not the senator. Daniel knew that much. But the CEO of Veritas Dynamics, a woman the business magazines called the architect. She was in her early 40s, sharp-eyed, self-made, famous for turning struggling companies into powerhouses. Her pen hovered above the contract. Once we sign, the CFO said smoothly, there's no turning back. Daniel didn't remember walking forward. He didn't remember leaving the mop leaning against the wall. He only remembered Sophia's small hand gripping, his shirt the night their landlord had raised rent 3 years ago, and the terror in her voice when she'd asked, "Are we going to lose our home, Daddy?" "Don't sign the $4.2 billion deal." The words rang across the silent room like glass shattering. Every head turned. Security shifted near the door. Daniel stood there in scuffed sneakers and a navy uniform with a stain on the sleeve. Elizabeth Warren's pen stopped midair. "I'm sorry?" she said evenly. Daniel swallowed. His throat felt like sandpaper. "Ma'am, that land. Arcadia. People live there. Families. Seniors. Kids." One executive let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. "And you are?" "Daniel Ruiz," he said. "Night janitor." Murmurs rippled around the table. Elizabeth studied him, not dismissively, not angrily, just carefully. "You interrupted a board vote," the CFO snapped. "Security—" "It's okay," Elizabeth said quietly. The room stilled. Daniel's heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his ears. "My daughter goes to school there," he continued, his voice trembling but refusing to break. "My neighbors, they won't survive that kind of relocation. The rent hikes, the buyouts. I've seen what happens when companies promise revitalization. It doesn't revitalize the people who already live there. That's not our responsibility," someone muttered. Daniel looked at them, really looked at them, at their tailored suits and polished watches. "With respect, sir," he said, "it is." Silence. Elizabeth leaned back in her chair. "Explain," she said. The CFO stared at her. "Elizabeth, this is inappropriate." She didn't look away from Daniel. "Explain," she repeated. Daniel took a breath. He told them about Mrs. Chen and her fixed income, about the elementary school that doubled as a community shelter during storms, about the small auto shop that sponsored the local Little League team, about how Arcadia wasn't a zone, it was a web of lives, fragile but real. "I clean this building every night," he said. I hear the speeches about innovation and impact. You say Veritas builds the future. But the future for who? No one moved. Outside, a helicopter passed the windows in slow silence. Finally, the CFO spoke, tight-lipped. The shareholders expect growth. Elizabeth's gaze drifted to the screen again, to the gleaming digital towers. Growth, she echoed. She tapped her pen against the table once. Twice. Then she did something no one in that room expected. She closed the folder. A sharp click. The sound seemed louder than Daniel's interruption. We're postponing the vote, she said. The room erupted. Postponing? We've negotiated for 18 months. The partners are waiting. Elizabeth stood. I built this company from a one-room office with folding chairs, she said, her voice calm but unshakable. We pride ourselves on data. But data isn't just numbers, it's people. And we don't have enough information. She looked at Daniel again. Mr. Ruiz, she said, if what you're describing is accurate, then this isn't just a real estate transaction. It's a community displacement. The CFO's face reddened. We can't derail a $4.2 billion acquisition because a janitor is emotional. Daniel flinched. Elizabeth didn't. We're not derailing it, she replied. We're examining it. She turned to the legal team. Schedule a full community impact assessment. Independent review. And I want town halls in Arcadia within the week. The room fell into stunned silence. Daniel felt like he might collapse. Security didn't move toward him. Instead, Elizabeth walked around the table, past vice presidents and investors, and stopped a few feet from him. How long have you worked here? She asked. 6 years. And no one's ever asked your opinion before? He almost laughed. No, ma'am. A flicker, something like regret, crossed her face. Thank you, she said simply. The executives froze. A CEO thanking a janitor. The deal didn't die that day, but it changed. Over the next month, Veritas executives walked the cracked sidewalks of Arcadia. They met shop owners, sat in folding chairs at the elementary school, listened to stories of grandparents who had raised 3 generations in the same brick buildings. Elizabeth came too. Daniel saw her standing outside the bodega one afternoon, speaking with Mrs. Chen through a translator app on her phone. The Community Impact Report revealed what Daniel already knew: forced relocation would push over 70% of residents below sustainable living thresholds. Small businesses would collapse. School enrollment would plummet. Investors pushed back. Stock prices dipped. News outlets caught wind of the delay. Some called Elizabeth weak. Others called her reckless. But then something unexpected happened. Elizabeth proposed a revision. Instead of demolition, Veritas would partner with the city to renovate existing buildings, preserve affordable housing units, and build new mixed-income developments on vacant lots nearby. Small business grants would be funded through a slice of corporate profits. A community advisory board would oversee every phase. Profit margins shrank, but they didn't disappear, and something else grew instead: trust. The day the new agreement was signed, it wasn't done behind closed glass. It was signed in Arcadia's elementary school gym. Folding chairs, fluorescent lights, kids peeking from doorways. Daniel stood in the back again, Sophia's hand in his. Elizabeth spotted him across the room. She smiled, not the polished, press-ready smile, but something softer. After the ceremony, she walked over. You were right, she said quietly. Daniel shook his head. I was scared. Courage isn't the absence of fear, she replied. It's speaking anyway. Sophia tugged at Daniel's sleeve. Daddy, is she the boss? Daniel nodded. Elizabeth crouched to Sophia's level. Your dad is very brave, she said. He reminded us that numbers matter less than people. Sophia beamed. Months later, Arcadia looked different, but it still felt like home. Fresh paint brightened old brick. Elevators were repaired. Playgrounds rebuilt. The auto shop got a new roof. Mrs. Chen's. Dumplings sold out daily. Thanks to a small business spotlight campaign. Veritas launched. And Daniel? He still worked nights. Still pushed his mop across polished floors. But something had shifted. One evening, as he emptied trash bins outside the executive wing, the CFO, the same one who'd called him emotional, stopped him. My niece moved into one of the renovated units, the man said awkwardly. It's impressive work. Daniel nodded politely. After the CFO walked away, Daniel allowed himself a small smile. Sometimes humanity didn't roar. Sometimes it whispered. It spoke up in rooms where it wasn't invited. It risked embarrassment. It risked everything. All for a little girl's bedroom in Queens. All for neighbors who couldn't afford lobbyists. All for the belief that billion-dollar decisions should never forget the human heartbeat beneath them. And somewhere in a glass tower overlooking Manhattan, a CEO who almost signed a $4.2 billion deal now kept a framed photo on her desk. It wasn't of skyscrapers or stock tickers. It was of a community gymnasium, folding chairs filled with ordinary people. On the back, written in black ink, "Build the future. Don't erase it."